G'day everybody, Matt Ellis with you for another edition of the Cricket Library podcast, and today we hear the fascinating story of former Zimbabwean captain Tatenda Taibu.
There's a half tracker, it's in the air and it's over his head, and it's over everybody's head. Taibu! Some joy to the Zimbabwean. There's the pedal. And there's his 50. He'll be delighted about that. One in Test cricket and now in one-day internationals as well.
Very good innings. Came in when his side was in desperate trouble. He's played sensible cricket.
We'll hear about his origins for his passion for the game, breaking into first-class cricket, being a very young captain, his memories of playing against Australia, his time in the IPL, his memorable Test match 100, and something that is very deeply important to him, his Christian faith. It's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy the Tatenda Taibu story on the Cricket Library podcast. It's a very warm welcome to the Cricket Library podcast. Tatenda Taibu, thanks so much for joining us.
It's good to be here, mate.
And you're in Australia at the moment. Great to have you down under, and a great opportunity to share a bit of your story. I'd be really interested to start at the beginning and find out where your passion for cricket started.
So cricket was introduced at the high density suburbs where I lived. It was a Zimbabwe cricket program to spread cricket into the four corners of the country. Cricket in Zimbabwe was known to be an elitist sport.
Mm-hmm.
And Zimbabwe cricket decided to embark on this journey to spread it into the four corners. So my primary school was targeted to be one of those schools to introduce the sport, together with three more schools in our area. So they targeted a few schools, 3 to 4 in each of these areas, and I happened to be at one of those schools. So it was a PE lesson, and the coach, my first coach, Stevie Mangongo, would take us for PE, introducing the sport. So he would teach us how to hold a cricket bat, to hold a cricket ball and bowl, and to catch and throw. And if he felt that you had talent, then you were taken to the right, and then if not, you were taken to the left. It wasn't a matter of who wants to play the sport. It was who is showing signs of being able to play the sport. So because of that, he assembled a very talented group. And we just started practicing on a daily basis, and just got better and better and better. And that's why so many cricketers have been produced from that primary school. So
instead of doing normal lessons, you'd get taken out to have some special cricket time.
Oh yeah, so the introduction was the PE lesson, and then you were then asked to come and practice after school.
Oh,
so,
great.
Yeah. So school finished at 1:05. So we had to rush back home, get our lunch, change, and then come back for training. And we had to start at 2:30. So we'd go from 2:30 to 5:30. Oh. And this was Monday to Friday. It didn't matter if it was, summer, winter, autumn, or spring. It was every single day if you weren't playing a game.
Wow, that's outstanding. And how does that progress to playing traditional formats of cricket, playing in organised games?
Mm-hmm. So initially we would play against the other high density suburbs.
Yep.
The ones where cricket was also introduced, and then so there was a competition amongst those schools. Then if you did well, then you would then be selected to play against the private schools.
Mm.
So we won every single game we played, and then we started playing against the private schools, and that was our first test of playing on the turf.
Yep.
And we won everything, and we just went around beating everyone, winning every game, really. And that went on for 4 years, even after we had left primary school.
Do you think that's due to the volume of practice you guys were doing? Were the other schools practicing as intensely as you were?
Were not at all. The other schools were not practicing as intensely.
Yeah.
And also, Stephen Mangongo was very result-oriented, very tough character, result-oriented, and and also was a good coach. Still is a good coach, and so definitely the volume played a part. The quality of coaching played a part, and there was a little bit more, a bit of strictness that was also instilled in us. And things like, if you were good and you're one of the main players, we were pretty much not allowed to play any other sport, because come winter we had to play, we had to play football, because football, also known as soccer, it was the sport that a lot of us kids would play in the winter. But if you had to go for Stephen Mangongo's training, you didn't have to play any other sport. So I got into trouble one time because I was also good in football, and I was actually playing for a club. So I had to find ways to dodge Stephen Mangongo's trainings to go for football. And then he just sent a message with one of the players and said, if you know what's good for you, you have to come back to cricket. So I knew exactly what that meant. So I was on my road back. However, though I was good in football, soccer, when it was time to get to go to high school, we had scholarship trials. So the ones that were really good, the ones that were outstanding, would get an opportunity to get a full scholarship at a private school. And so I had a choice to make between football and cricket. But because I really gelled well with my cricket friends, and I felt that cricket, my cricket colleagues were grounded, were well disciplined, were respectful, as opposed to my football friends who were a bit on the rowdy side. I ended up choosing cricket because of that.
Yeah, wow. And you break into first class cricket very young. Can you tell us how that came about? And is it true that you would have made your debut sooner, but there was a bit of a mix-up with one of the grounds you were meant to be playing at for making your debut?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting story, because so everything is just happening too fast. So I've gone to high school, and I've made national under 14. Then I made national under 16 when I was 1 year underage. And then I made national under 19 when I was 2 years underage. So I actually ended up playing 2 years of under 19 World Cup. So on the first under 19 World Cup, I've met the team and as a reserve keeper. But at the end of the tour, I'm now betting number 3 and I'm first choice keeper. So things were happening so fast for me. Now I didn't realize how well I was doing. I was just enjoying my cricket, going out there trying to perform to the best of my ability. And so I come back from the under 19 World Cup in Sri Lanka, and I'm the second highest run getter in the team. And on that tour, we had Paul Strang, who was obviously played for Zimbabwe, but he was recovering from a forearm injury, and so he took us on that tour. Now he wrote an amazing report for me, and he basically said, wrote that if you're looking for someone who's going to take over from Andy Flower, this is the boy that you should be looking at.
Oh wow!
So Zimbabwe Cricket did not waste any time. I get called by the chairman of selectors, and it says, "Young man, bring your passport. You are joining the national team in West Indies." So, so I haven't even played my first class game, and he says, "Well, there is a first class game that's coming up this weekend, so you'll hear word about that." So I've gone back to my practice, to my to my local coach, my local club, to practice, and then he says, "Well, are you aware of what's happening?" So I said, "Yeah, I've had this meeting, and this is what I've been told." And he says, "Oh, okay, I'm sure when you get home, there's going to be a message for you from the team manager for Mashonaland, because you're going to be playing over the weekend. You're playing for Mashonaland." So I said, "Oh, okay." So I get home. I'm waiting for a message or a phone call. Now remember, those days it was just the introduction of cell phones.
Yeah.
It was all landline. So I'm sitting there, waiting for a call, and there's no call that came in.
Oh.
Now I'm thinking, what do I do? Now around 7 p.m., obviously I know that the offices are closed. So I'm thinking, how are they going to get hold of me? And how am I going to where am I going to go to play? I don't know where the game is being played. All the information that I've been told is I have to wait for a phone call, and I have to get ready to play. So I thought, well, let me wake up early in the morning, ask my sister's partner to drive me to the main offices. So already I knew I was going to be late, because the offices used to open at 8.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to go to the offices. I felt that going to the offices would have been better, because all the other grounds are closer to Harare Sports Club. So if the game was not at Harare Sports Club, then I would quickly just go to the other grounds. But if I'm waiting in Highfield, where I lived, that's going to be another 45 minutes to get to the grounds.
Yeah.
So and by the way, all this I'm doing by myself, because my mother hardly knows, didn't know anything about cricket. She didn't know how well I was doing.
Yeah.
Apart from just knowing that her son has been selected to go somewhere and play. She was busy trying to feed the 6 other children. So I'm doing this by myself. And I speak to my sister, and we make our way to Harare Sports Club. So the game was not at Harare Sports Club, but I needed to wait for the offices to open, so that I would ask where the game was, and that is what happened, and that's how I ended up going to Country Club, where the game was. So me going to Harare Sports Club, that's when I was telling people about that. That's when they thought that I turned up to the wrong venue. But
right.
That's what transpired.
Yeah. And you have a very good under-19s World Cup, like you were saying. You get selected on the tour. When did you and Paul Strang had said you're the guy as far as the future of Zimbabwe cricket. How did it actually evolve from breaking into the team to was there time you spent with Andy where he was sort of showing you the ropes and getting you ready? To tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I think Andy knew about me because when I kept the very first time, his father, Bill Flower, who is a man after my own heart, he was umpiring as well as coaching us, and I the wicket keeper did not turn up, so I'm going back to when I was 13. So the wicket keeper did not turn up, so he asked if anyone wanted to volunteer and keep, and I just put my hand up. Said, well, I'll try it. I wasn't afraid of trying things, so I just put my hand up straight away, and it so happened that Andy came to see his father about something. So while I was keeping, Bill Flower asked Andy what he thought about my hand-eye coordination, just the general movement, general keeping movement, and Andy said he's a natural. So then Bill said to Andy, so if you think he's a natural, he doesn't have keeping gloves, he doesn't have keeping pads, So I'm gonna leave it on you to to bring your old pair gloves and pads so that I can take them to him so that he carries on keeping. And Andy, true to his word, did that. And I got got a visitor, Bill Flower, at in school because I was in boarding school.
Yeah.
And he says, "I've brought something for you. This is Andy Flower's keeping pads and keeping gloves." And you're never going to leave keeping because of that. So then that was the decision to stop bowling and start keeping. So he knew of me because he kept following up about that.
Yep.
And so he knew of me already. And Bill would talk about the four musketeers. So being myself, Stuart Matrikenyere, Hamilton Masakaza, and Busimusi Sibanda. So we used to spend a lot of time together and with Bill. So when I met the national team, Andy was the captain, and he just took me under his wing straight away.
Yep.
Whenever we did extra training, he would make sure that I was there. And every time we'd play the game, he would sit next to me and say, or most of the time, he would sit next to me and say, "Titi, what did you think we did right, and what do you think we did wrong?" So I knew that question was coming almost every time we're on the bus. So I started thinking ahead. Like Andy's going to ask me this question, I must have an answer.
Yeah.
So I think he was just preparing me to assess, to learn to do team assessment and as well as individual assessment. Because he would come and say, "You got out to a straight ball. That ball, I had a look at it. It didn't swing. Why did you miss that ball?" So I had to answer because I used to practice, with him at times on tours. So because of that started getting me to think more about the game.
Yep.
And you would say, "Tiba, if you were the captain, which bowling changes would you make?" I had to think. So I learned to think more about the game when the game was going on as a preparation to answering Andy. But what really he was doing, he was teaching me to think more about the game and to be able to assess situations as the game goes.
Yeah, and you're very young when you actually get given the responsibility. Do you feel? What were your feelings about it? Were you excited, overwhelmed, a bit of everything?
Well, I think everything from the start, everything just happened too quickly for me to comprehend what was happening. So when I knew a lot of players had come to me and said, be prepared, you're going to be a captain at a young age. So I knew that was going to come. I just didn't know it was going to come that quickly. And I had also been made vice captain when I was 19. So I knew that was going to come, at some stage. So to answer your question, I think a lot was happening too quickly for me to comprehend and to really analyze how I was feeling about it. I'm a very result-oriented person, probably gets that from my first coach. So instead of thinking about what it means and how I was feeling, my thoughts were always focused on how are we going to win the next series, how we're going to win the next game. So my mind would be so caught up in that I sort of brushed away all the other emotions and thoughts that would go with, getting, responsibility at such a young age.
Yeah, for sure. And we've got a lot of Australian listeners who'd love to hear a couple of reflections on a couple of Australian memories. One I wanted to ask you about was you probably had one of the best views of one of the best innings we'll ever see on Australian soil, Matthew Hayden in Perth. What were your memories as a young man wicket keeping and watching Matthew Hayden go about his work, breaking the at the time the world record?
Mm. Well, that was obviously quite tough because I had to watch every single ball. The good thing about that was I didn't have to catch many balls. Yeah, probably had the best seats in the house. I think I think there was a little bit of we had Raymond Price who was bowling quite well, and we had Trevor Gripper who was a part-time spinner, the off spinner, and he would tame the ball. But he wasn't used a lot. Because he was an opening batter. He was mainly a batter. Now, what I remember vividly about it was, the seamers weren't getting anything, and I thought, you know what, we might have a chance with the spinners. When the spinners come on, the ball might be turning, and then the first few overs, the ball did not turn, and I just remember thinking, oh dear, we're in trouble here. so that I remember so well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was oh dear for sure. Yeah, he batted really well. I mean, at that time, in that point in time in cricket, when we're talking about Test cricket, a lot of the batters would take their time and just ease their way into a century or over a century. But he did not ease his way to a century. He just blasted his way to 300. So that was a special. I think that was a special innings, and obviously to break the world record it has to be something special.
Yeah, and a more positive memory for you, 2007 World Cup, your T20 debut, an Australian team. Gilchrist, Hayden, Ponting, Simons, Hussey, Hodge, Haddon, Lee, Johnson, Bracken, and Zimbabwe spoiled the party.
Well, it was one of my sweetest memories. Yeah, it was a very strong Australian side, and T20 had just been introduced, and we thought, well, it's when the longer the game, the more the distance in terms of quality, the more the visibility of the distance in terms of quality. But the shorter the version, the less the visibility of the quality. So we thought, well, it's T20, so anything can happen, and we just need, as opposed to Test cricket where you have a lot of players that have to play well. In T20, you just need a couple, or just several to play well, and you could win a match. And I knew that. So there was no. So when we would play Test cricket, there would be a fear that would accompany playing a big team.
Yeah.
But that fear was not there in T20. Being a new format. And I'm a big believer that fear plays a big part in sport. So once one has got fear, the other one is more freer and able to express themselves better because they don't have what I would call demons, fighting in his or her head. And because of the absence of that fear, we were able to just express ourselves. I think the fielding was immaculate. We caught everything, and we were really tight in the inner ring, and it just that fielding effort just brought a lot of belief, over and above the belief that was there already because of no fear, and when we went on to batting, we had a bit of a shaky start, but settled things well, and then ended up, winning that game, and it was definitely sweet for us.
Yeah, one of the memorable moments, definitely taking down a powerhouse like Australia. Just moving on to some individual success with the bat for you in Test cricket, January 2005, 85 not out in the first innings against Bangladesh, and then a big 153 in the second innings. At that point in time, scoring your first Test 100, What does what do the individual moments mean to you in team game like cricket?
So that was quite a difficult one because we were, our backs were against the wall. And I'd scored 85, as you mentioned, in the first innings, and we were still, a little bit in trouble. And I say in trouble because we knew that we had to win the test match to be able to, to tie. So we needed to leave enough time in the game, and we needed to score quicker in the second innings. But when I walked in the second innings, we had a low score for 4, but I remember walking in and speaking to Brendan Taylor, who I joined on the crease, and I said, look, it's actually because I think we had a lead of I don't remember the lead that we had, but I was saying to him that because of the lead, the score was not exactly what it was. So, for example, if we had a 50 lead and we were 30 for 4, I was actually saying to him we were 80 for 4. And not 30 for 4. So don't worry about the scorecard. Let's just make sure that we play our game. So you play your game. He was a leg side player, and I'll play my game. I was more an offside player, and I said that will obviously, mess them up. And we had a really good partnership, before he departed. And then now we then lost quick wickets again. Now I'm almost about to get 100, and I'm now betting with the number 10 better.
Yeah.
And we still need more runs on the board.
Yeah.
So I said to Douglas Wondo, you just block everything, and let me control the innings. So we had a 50 partnership. He scored 1 run, and I managed to keep the scoreboard ticking. And before we lost a couple of wickets, and we had enough on the board, but we just the wicket had not deteriorated as well as we thought, as much as we thought it would do, and they blocked out for a draw. So to answer your question, it was I could not think about my individual score on that in that innings because there was more that was at stake than just an individual performance, and especially as a captain.
Yeah, absolutely. And later that year, you make the decision to leave international cricket. Cricket's been such a big part of your life, and I'll tie in here your Christian worldview and your Christian beliefs. How helpful for you was it having a strong Christian faith at that time of needing to make a life-changing, challenging decision that affected your career and a lot of the uncertainty that was going on around that time?
Well, I think in hindsight, it's always easier to look at things in hindsight, but my character is such that when I put my eyes on something, I go full out. And everyone that knows me knows that about me. And I had started asking myself life questions, and which are, genuine life questions that, people do ask themselves. I've been playing cricket, and as you mentioned, cricket has been a part of my life. And I remember the time that I played, the time that I was really playing well. That would have been around 2007, 2008. I remember going back, and there were a lot of newspaper articles because I was scoring and I was really doing well at that time. And I remember coming back home, and I used to sit just by the glass doorway, where my house, and I'll be looking out at the trees, just letting the sunshine in. And I remember thinking, what then? So, and that was a question that I didn't have an answer to. So the question was, what then? I've scored runs, or we've won a game, or I haven't scored runs, we've lost a game. What then? I have to go back again. I have to start building up building myself up for another game. And then, yes, articles will be written. And but there will come a time when I'll have to leave this game. There will come a time when the trophies are thrown away. There will come a time when the name is forgotten. What then? So my mind could not get an answer to that question. And because that, the next part of that question was, where did I come from? What am I doing here on earth? And where am I going? And I needed to find answers to that. And I believe that people, in different stages of their life, come to where they ask themselves those questions. And it just happened that, I was asking myself these questions when I was at my playing best. And I thought, well, I think I'm going to have to find this answer in religious circles, because I think I'll be able to find it anywhere else. So I started on a spiritual journey. So now, because I started concentrating a lot on that, my cricket had to be disrupted, I think, because that's my character. I think, someone else who's able to multitask will be able to do both. But because of my character, that's why initially I said, in hindsight, I will look at it as, maybe there could have been a better way of doing it. But because of my character, I just go full out. So I was 100% concentrating on that. And yes, I was still contracted. Yes, I was still playing. But I knew that most of my focus had gone to finding these answers. So I joined the church, because of that. And I was finding answers, and I was finding peace. And I just got drawn into it more and more, up until I thought, well, one years to go. So which goes now? Is it cricket that goes, or is it, the spiritual side of my life that goes? So because I'm a single-eyed person, I thought, well, cricket is going to go anyway, because I'm going to retire at some stage. But I think spirituality will not go. That's just really you continue until you leave this earth. So that's what made me to to make a decision and let cricket go, rather than the spiritual side.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I'd love to hear a little bit about the Indian Premier League. T20 cricket was very new. You find yourself getting a contract with the likes of Ponting, Gale, Shoaib Akhtar, Brad Hodge, Brendan McCullum, and I think John Buchanan would have been your coach as well.
That is correct.
Yeah, what was it like being a part of the early stages of the IPL, and what are your fond memories of being there?
Like anything else that I've mentioned before, that was a new league, and we didn't know what to expect. So it was like, oh, okay, I got picked, so let's go. So I've gone there, and I don't have any expectations, and I get there, and I'm thinking, dear, this is bigger than what I thought. And then you get into the changing room, you start to realize who's in the team, and you're thinking, okay, there are four overseas players to play, and if I'm looking at this with a correct eye, I'm I like being honest with myself, and I mean, we had, you've mentioned, Ponting, Chris Gale, Brendan McCullum, and there was like Janta Mendes, there was Tusha Pereira, there was Shoaib Akhtar Umagul, there was Salman Bat, there was Hafiz, Brad Hodge. I mean, we had Dave Hussey. We had a massive team, in terms of professionals, overseas professionals. So I was like, okay, the chances are I might not get a game here. However, I have to prepare myself for if anything happens. So I'm still, I just got along with John Buchanan since then, because what he says was outstanding about me during that time was it didn't faze me that I might not get a game. I just continued to work hard. And because of that, I managed to get 3 games out of that first year. And so my initial thoughts about it was, this is massive. This is bigger than I thought. And if I'm going to give myself a chance, I have to just, put my head down and make sure that, should that time come, I should be ready and not regret. So yeah, I mean, the first game that McCallum scored 158, that was, that then hit the tournament going, and it has just gone from strength to strength.
Yeah, and life after cricket, how has it been for you transitioning out of cricket? And can you tell us a little bit about what life looks like for you these days?
All right. So when I went away, I was involved in the church, and I was a trustee, and that went on for several years. And then I made a decision to relocate. So I decided to go to UK with my family, and I just wanted to give my kids, a head start in life, so to speak. So it was a decision for the kids to go to the schools that we thought were, that we had staged and thought were good.
Yep.
And seen that they're good. So we relocated to the UK, and I thought, well, I'm in the UK. I'm not in Bulawayo. While if I'm searching for a church to go to, I could continue to play some cricket. So I made a decision. I'll make myself available and play. And then the club that I got attached to, they were so excited about that, and they communicated with BBC Sports, and then it was big news everywhere that I was back in cricket. Now, because of that news, Zimbabwe Cricket then contacted me and said, "Look, we see that you're now back in cricket. Why don't you get involved?" So there was a new chairman, Kutlani, who's the current chairman to date, and I put that aside for about a year. We chatted on and off for a year, and then eventually I accepted and went in as a selector, as well as head of academy. So, but I was still based in the UK, but I would split my time between the two places. So that went on until 2018. Then just end of 2019, 2020, that's when COVID hit, and obviously the world was in a bit of a standstill for about a couple of years. After that, I then got a role in Bangladesh at a place called BKSP, which I really enjoyed, coaching there. So I spent 2 years there, and I went in a few places in South Asia, and I was in Pakistan, coaching the under-19 World Cup team that's actually participating in South Africa now. And cricket is you feel like in cricket everyone knows everyone else. And so we're having a conversation with Mark Coles, who's become a good colleague of mine, and he says, Chiba, I would really love for you to join us. He was coaching the Pakistan women's team. He says, I would really love for you to join us. So he's trying to see how best that can go, and what I'll be happy with in terms of contract, etc. And while we're having that conversation, he then says, you know what, there is a place where I think you'll fit in, like a glove. He says, I know if I'm being selfish, we'll continue on this because I really want you to work with you.
Yep.
But if I'm being honest, and I think there's, if I know that there's a place that you can save the, cricket better, I think it's Papua New Guinea. And there was an advertisement that was there, so I did apply for that, and then it just, because of the words that Mark Holt had, and then the people I started communicating with, I was communicating with Joe Dawes, who's done massive for PNG, and then he handed me over to Richard Don, who is the current CEO, and the conversation was just smooth. And instead of having an interview where it's a Zoom, they said, look, why don't you come here? See if you like the place. See if there's potential that you can work with. That way it'll be a better interview. So I agreed to that, and I just loved it from the word go. And so currently, I am coaching the Papua New Guinea men's team. So we're actually preparing for the World Cup, the T20 World Cup.
Yeah.
So as well as the head coach for the men's team, I also hold a performance director role. So I look at the quality of both the players and the coaching to make sure that it is international standard for the men's team, the women's team, the under 19 boys and under 19 girls. So I hold two roles with Papua New Guinea at the moment. So the reason why I'm in Australia at the moment is because we've just come back from New Zealand, where we're taking part in the Pan Pacific Cup, which we retained. And now I'm on my way back to Papua New Guinea because we had given the gentleman or the guy is a bit of a break because of the strikes that were happening. So now I commence back, for training.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds like there's still a good road ahead for you, and really excited to see what the next chapter looks like. Our last question. This is one that you can have a bit of fun with. If you're organising a dream cricket net session, you can invite whoever you want to be there. Could be cricketers, could be celebrities, could be anyone living or dead. Who are you going to invite as your three guests?
My captain for that net session will be Nelson Mandela.
Oh yes.
Big fan of Nelson Mandela. I think I've read pretty much every book that has been written about him. I think he's just an amazing character. I think he was able to control his emotions to a degree that a lot of people will not be able to. And he was educated, and always looked for the best way of resolving anything, regardless of how difficult it was. And he was always in tune of knowing that at the end of the day, we are just but human. And that is what, does it for me. The other person is a colleague of mine who's still living. I do spend a bit of time with him every time I'm able to when I'm in Bangladesh. His name is Riaz Al Mamun. He's the chairman of Epilion Group, one of the textile industries in Bangladesh.
Yeah. Now,
this gentleman does not say much, but when he opens his mouth, there is all. So just judging from the time that I spent with him, I met him the first time in 2005 when I was playing for one of his teams, and we just got along. And I've learned so much from him, and I believe there's still plenty more. There's still from him.
Yep.
The third one will be my wife, Loveness.
Oh, good choice.
I think. I think I've never met anyone who's more patient than she is. I mean, having to deal with someone like myself is takes a bit of a cup. I mean, maybe not so much now, but my younger days I was quite fiery and a bit of a hothead.
Yeah.
But she always used to find a way to calm me down, and regardless of the many mistakes that I've made, she's so patient, and yeah, so I've never come across anyone who's as patient as she is, and I would love to, though I spend a lot of time with her, I would love to know the secret to that. I'm still yet to unlock what the secret is. So that would be my next session.
Sounds like she's mastered unconditional love, Tatenda.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Cricket Library podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing those parts of your story. You've also got a book as well, Keeper of the Faith, and I'd encourage myself and everyone to read more of your story and find out more of the details of the intricacies of your life. And just really thank you for being on the show with us here today.
Thanks, Matt.
A massive thanks to Tatenda Taibu for joining us on this edition of the Cricket Library podcast, and a massive thanks to you, our loyal listeners who tune in to each and every episode. Some wonderful stories being told through this platform, and we're very thankful to you for keeping us inspired, and hopefully these stories are keeping you inspired to love the game of cricket. And if you're looking for more stories, head over to thecricketlibrary.com. Plenty for you to enjoy there. Don't forget to check out Tatenda's book, Keeper of the Faith, and you can get that via the usual places, no doubt Amazon, one of those that you might like to go to get that book. And of course, keep your eye out for when the next episode will be landing. You never know who will be next on the Cricket Library podcast, and we look forward to your company again next time. This has been Matt Ellis. Bye for now.